Hello, my name is Talip Küçükcan. I welcome you to the TRT World Forum Digital Debates. In this session, we are going to look at the Eastern Mediterranean, especially French ambitions in the Eastern Mediterranean. What does France try to do? What are the main objectives of French government in the region? Our guest is today Mehmet Öğütçü. He is a well-known expert on energy issues. Before we go on to our discussion, let me introduce him to you very briefly. Mehmet Öğütçü is an internationally recognized authority on energy, diplomacy, finance, and investment. He has built significant knowledge and experience with a particular geographic focus on Europe, Turkey, Central Asia, Russia, Africa, and the MENA region. He is based in London, Paris, Shanghai, and Istanbul. He is a very international person in that sense, and he has a career more than 35 years in such areas, in international organizations, in private industry. He has lots of experience. Currently, he serves as the chairman of Global Resources Partnership, a UK strategic advisory group, the special envoy to the International Energy Charter for the MENA region, and chair of the Bosphorus Energy Club and the London Energy Club. It goes on and on, actually. Mehmet Öğütçü, welcome to our program. It's a pleasure and honor to host you today. This session is dedicated to the developments. This session is dedicated to the recent developments and ongoing developments, actually, in the Eastern Mediterranean, with reference to France and Turkey. But before we move on to the French case, ambitions of France, I just would like to ask you a general question about the significance and importance of Eastern Mediterranean. Why there is such an interest, such a close interest by many countries in the Eastern Mediterranean?
Well, I'm not going to tell you the historical significance of Mediterranean, which is actually the juncture of three continents, Europe, Africa, and Asia. The world civilization sprung from that region, as well as the three monolithic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So it is a very, very important region historically, but also in terms of energy, in terms of geopolitics, and this is a region to reckon with. And if you look at the countries around East Mediterranean, and so from Egypt to Israel, from Turkey to Greece, Cyprus, Lebanon, Syria, these are the hot points of our lives. Geopolitical tensions, economic rivalries, energy competition, conflicts, all of these are happening in that region. However, East Med was not as hot as it is today, leaving behind the historical disputes that we had, but only after the discovery of natural gas reserves in East Med, starting with Egypt, the Zohr and then Nur gas fields. These are gigantic fields that has made Egypt a natural gas superpower in the region. Then Tamar and Leviathan in Israel, again, the added value, both for self-sufficiency in Israel, as well as for export opportunities, particularly through Leviathan field. Then we also saw that in Cyprus, Aphrodite, Creditors 2, and many other new fields. So all of a sudden, you see many international oil and gas companies, from ExxonMobil to Chevron, Noble Energy, Shell, BP, even Qatar Gas, and all others, are in the region for exploration and development. Although this is not the right time, we can discuss it later on energy-wise, but it is clear that there is significant reserves of natural gas in the region. Also, more importantly, in the new world, which is reshaping now, and in light of the power shift, Asians, Middle Easterns, Europeans in decline, the US interest, Turkey emerging as a regional power to reckon with, because from whichever angle you look at it, Turkey is the largest power in East Med. Economically, militarily, seventh largest military in the world. Economically, it's the seventh or sixth largest in Europe. And then you also have the longest sea coastline to Mediterranean. Therefore, without Turkey, there is nothing you can do in East Med. It could be a spoiler of others' policies. it could be also a game maker, peacemaker in many regards.
Mr. Öğütçü, we will come to the role of Turkey, of course, in our discussion. But I think you have rightly explained the historical importance as far as the cradle of civilizations and also the current interest in the Eastern Mediterranean. That is the energy, that is economy, that is, in a sense, power development. And I think this kind of rivalry is taking place. And you have also said that Turkey has a long border on the coastline. And for Turkey, it is an essential, I think, an existential, let's say, importance to be in the Eastern Mediterranean. But France has also, coastline, but it is in the western part of Mediterranean. Why do you think France is interested in the Eastern Mediterranean to such an extent compared to many EU countries? France seems to be the forerunner in terms of getting engaged in the Eastern Mediterranean.
I think you're right. This is also to my great surprise that, or disappointment, or whatever you might call it, that France got involved in EastMed more than its ambitions, power could allow it to engage. Because we know that French is a former colonial power in Africa, especially Francophone Africa, where still they have strong economic, military, and commercial geopolitical interest. But we also know that from the history, France was a very powerful player in EastMed. Remember that they invaded Egypt when it was under Ottoman rule for long centuries. Napoleon invaded Egypt. This was in a way the beginning of the worsening of relationship. And then also, we know that they were very active in Lebanon. And even after the latest disaster that happened in Beirut, you remember that Macron was the first head of state rushing to Beirut and to show that French is going to support any effort there. In Libya, they are very active in supporting Haftar forces versus Sarraj regime, which we support, and together with Qatar. And there is not only, of course, the interest in Libya, but Libya's border with Chad, especially where French forces are somehow risked seriously by ISIS, Daesh forces. And there also strong interest, vital interest in the Maghreb, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, former colonies, and still under very, very strong French influence. So they see that anything happening in EastMed will affect their traditional sphere of influence areas, militarily, security-wise, that's very important, but also commercially and geopolitically, because France wants to come back to the world stage as a new geopolitical player, because until now, it was under the umbrella of the European Union. French tried to exercise its power and show its presence in different parts of the world. But what we see is that EU common foreign and security policy is fading. It doesn't have any influence. Have you seen EU making any influence in China, or in Africa, in Latin America, Russia, Central Asia, China? So therefore, I think French are feeling the need to assert themselves independently of the EU, and sometimes together with the support of EU. And in that regard, it is a new phenomenon that they are taking a very assertive position in EastMed, which is not bordered directly to France.
Well, I think you have made an interesting observation that brings me to the point of debates and discussion on the concept of neo-Ottomanism. When Turkey becomes active in its neighborhood, there in the Western media, in the Western political circles, Turkey is accused of revisiting this idea of neo-Ottomanism and trying to re-establish itself as an Ottoman power, neo-Ottoman power. But what we have described is that actually France is doing exactly what it has done in the past as a colonial power. Of course, today we do not use this concept anymore, but I think in the previous, I think, spheres of influence, France is trying to establish itself and also expand. How do you see this? I mean, isn't that a contradiction in itself when France is accusing Turkey of being a neo-Ottoman power?
I don't think there is any controversy in that. In politics, especially the leaders like Macron or Erdogan and whoever, Trump, Putin, they always want to use their own rhetoric to support their position. But we have to admit the fact that Turkey is seen in the Western world, rightly or wrongly, because perception is the reality sometimes, as an emerging power that will upset all the balances. We saw that already in Africa, where Turkey comes after China as the second most important power to influence there the commercial development, resource development, humanitarian assistance, and what you have. This is coming somehow at the expense of France, because they are very powerful in Africa and they have enormous commercial interest. And some of this now being undercut by Turkish efforts, renewed efforts. And there is no coordination between Ankara and Paris in this regard. This is what the French quite worried about Turkey and become somehow indignant as well. The same goes in Syria, Lebanon, Libya, and again, Turkey supports certain groups in these countries, and France is on the other side. And therefore, again, we see the clash of interest between the two. And however, as you say rightly, and whether what France is pursuing with vigor in these areas, could it be considered also neo-French imperial policies as opposed to neo-Ottomanism? There is some truth in neo-Ottomanism as well. I think we have to be realistic in that, because in Turkey, there's a certain group of people thinking that with Turkey becoming such a huge power, and it's becoming also somehow revisionist, because most of the things in the past were imposed on Turkey, and Turkey was probably in a volatile or weaker position to accept it. But now Turkey would like to renegotiate certain share of power, division of influence of power. I mean, Turkey is active now in Red Sea, in the Gulf, in Africa, in Central Asia, in Southeast Europe. This is not the Turkey that they have become accustomed to, because in the past, Turkey was only concerned on its peace at home, peace abroad. Yes, this is a wonderful motto of Atatürk, but it was a more status quo power. Perhaps it's a good thing or bad, so it depends on how you evaluate it politically. But Turkey is seen abroad, as far as I can observe it, as a revisionist power, not happy with the current status quo and try to develop and expand its sphere of influence. And this is what France are doing as well. And sometimes people ask me what the hell Turkey is doing in Libya. Then my counter question is what the hell France is doing or United Arab Emirates is doing in Libya. For a power like Turkey, it's one of the measured power all the way from China to Germany, Russia to Saudi Arabia in this vast geography. Turkey is the biggest regional power to reckon with. So it's only normal.
Right. Actually, you have explained some of the points that I was going to raise with you. The main reasons why France and Turkey is becoming more, rival in this region. We have already, I think, explained that Turkey is expanding in areas where the French had, traditional influence, but Turkey is now trying to break down that sort of influence. Maybe I can remind our audience that Turkey now has the 5th largest diplomatic representations in the world. I mean, Turkey has also, I think, has been following and pursuing a very assertive foreign policy. And if you look at before COVID-19, the places where Turkish airline is flying in Africa, I think almost in all capitals, you could see the presence of Turkish Airlines, TİKA, this is Development Agency of Turkey, and the humanitarian aid that Turkey is, I think, providing. Turkey is the number one, I think, aid provider in the world. Do you think those sort of factors also are playing a role in the rivalry between Turkey and France?
It is. I mean, it is normally international relations because we are recalibrating the balance of power in the new world that we are going through after the COVID-19 pandemic. And now in every area, we have a new thinking on how the world will be reshaped and how the traditional balance of power will be recalculated, like China re-emerging and will be with US the main powers to shape the world. But you also have regional powers like Turkey, Iran, Indonesia, Brazil, and also other major powers. EU is a great economic power, economic giant, but it's a political dwarf. It doesn't have so much influence in making things happen around the world. So Russia, Japan, India. So we are going to have a perhaps more, polarized world, multipolar world, in which China and US will be the major powers to influence how we are going to live economically, geopolitically, as well as other areas, technology-wise as well. So in this world, I think Turkey will be a major power. Whatever we say about our domestic weaknesses, we have our own troubles at home, volatility, political situation, whatever you call it. However, this doesn't diminish the importance and the power of Turkey. And also, we have a political elite in Turkey, both in power and in opposition, which would like to assert and get the right place in the right time in the world order. I think it is all about this. Things are in flux, and France, unfortunately, is not considered to be a power on the rise. Because if you look at the French position, unemployment is increasing, Turkey is also, of course, but also its competitiveness are declining significantly. And within the EU, with the departure of the United Kingdom as a result of Brexit, now we have Germany and France as two locomotives of European integration movement. However, Germans are dominant. French, therefore, are trying to steal some act to be seen in Europe as a leader as well.
Actually, this is exactly what I am now going to raise with you, because you touched on the EU foreign policy issues and ineffectiveness of EU in many places, concerning China, concerning Russia, and also in the MENA region. EU does not have a very consistent foreign policy. I think there is a consensus on that. Therefore, some individual countries are trying to exert themselves in many places. My question is this: following Brexit and persistent questions about the EU unity, which we have already mentioned, there is a trouble there, including on key foreign policy issues such as Libya and the Eastern Mediterranean, what role does France seek to play in Europe, and how does Emmanuel Macron's East Med strategy factor into this? Because you said there's a rivalry between Germany and France. I think this is exactly what we are getting into now. Can you please explore this rivalry and what is really France is trying to do within European Union?
Yes, I mean, I think it's an illusion to think that there is unity within the European Union in many areas, because EU is not a homogeneous union. If you look around it, you see Club Med countries, which France is trying to lead, in which you have France, Italy, Spain, Malta, Greece, and Cyprus, South Cyprus. Then you have also Central and Eastern European countries, led by Germany in many ways. And the economic power is still with Germany, wherever you look at it. And then you also have small nations, Southeast European nations, especially Bulgaria, Romania, and in the near future, perhaps Albania, Kosovo, and Serbia joining the Union. And so it is in a disarray. It is impossible, in my opinion, to talk about a consistent and coherent union. Each of them has different interests, different historical background, and different geopolitical and economic priorities. UK is one example. I'm terribly sorry for the EU, but I'm terribly happy for Britain that they are exiting. Why? Because a union of 28 is not possible to work harmoniously, to become a major power internationally, as we have seen. UK now will be going alone. And I don't think that UK will be happy, by the way, that France is taking a close interest in ISMED, including in South Cyprus, where there are, significant UK bases, and they are silent. Have you seen anything coming from London at this moment? And another major power, which is quite influential in ISMED, is Russia. Have you seen Russians saying anything about it? It's France making all the noise. It's France trying to develop new pacts, alliances, to counter what it considers to be a Turkish threat to the region as well as to the European Union. But I think we have to realize that, right or wrong, in the EU, there is a growing perception that Turkey is a threat because of the migration, the Syrians coming, and Turkey might be perhaps using them in its negotiations with the EU. And ISMED, we believe it is Turkey's vital interest, international law-based, as well as equitable solution-based, because you cannot apply there purely United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea. It has to be resolved through discussions, bilateral or multilateral. And there also, I think Greece is very successful in its diplomacy to garner support from Mediterranean countries where we have difficulties. We don't have good political relations with most of them, including Israel, Egypt, Syria, and others. And Greece has used Turkey's relative isolation in this regard within the EU, because it's not that EU is against Turkey or trying to punish Turkey through sanctions, which we will see 25th, 27th September. There is going to be a special session on sanctions against Turkey, particularly with regard to banking, international banking, as well as Turkish ships calling at EU ports. These are very serious measures. But I believe that because of this rivalry between France and Germany, Germans, taking a more cool-headed approach, will support any effort to keep Turkey still engaged, rather than isolated or pushed out as France, Greece, and South Cyprus want. Therefore, Emmanuel Macron, if you try to understand what he tries to achieve domestically, we know that French economy and politics is in a mess. I was thinking perhaps he may not be re-elected, but when you look at the spectrum, you don't have anybody except Macron and Le Pen, and Madame Le Pen. So still, perhaps he has a good chance to be re-elected, but he wants to be seen as an international leader in Europe, taking the lead initiatives, as well as internationally in Africa, Mediterranean, Asia. I think Macron tries to put Turkey and Russia on the same level in terms of threat to European Union, which is a fallacy. However, this is what he's trying to achieve.
Right, Mr. Öğütçü, you have said that Greece is using this space successfully in terms of garnering support from various countries. This is exactly what I am now trying to actually ask you, because the tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean produced, strange bedfellows. When you look at the countries, Israel, Egypt, Greeks, Cypriots, Greek Cypriots, traditionally speaking, they are not always at good each other. They have some maybe common interests, but when we look at those countries today, they are almost united against Turkey. What are the reasons behind it? Why Turkey is seen as a threat in the Eastern Mediterranean? Why they are trying to undermine Turkey's interests over there? Because, as you have said, legally speaking, and also historically speaking, and geographically, Turkey is part of that region, and it's a strong country to defend its rights. As we can see, militarily, also Turkey is a very effective and strong, I think, actor in the Eastern Mediterranean.
I think it's not that difficult to understand why we are in this situation. I think, first of all, remember also that from early 2000 to 2010, 11, Turkey was seen as a shining model for the whole region, for the Middle East, for the Central Asian Republic, Southeast Europe, and others. Turkey was seen not as a threat, but as a partner to work with effectively. Turkey has tried to achieve there what the European Union failed, creating free trading region, free movement of people. It was a very successful policy. Turkey used there its soft power tools, instruments. And how we came to this situation in the past 10 years, I think we are partly to blame for this, at least as seen from outside. There is some perception, as I said. Sometimes we have to take into account perception, even if they are not the right perception. The perception is that Turkey is a revisionist power. Whatever Turkey expends will come at the expense of the countries in the region. So Greeks normally, of course, will be agitated. We have the historical disputes with Greece from Asian region and in other areas, Western trades and what you have. But also, I mean, with Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and because we are on the different sides of the power, Muslim Brotherhood and how they see them. And with Israel, I personally believe that there is no reason we shouldn't have good relations with Israel, because if we have good relations, then we will be able to influence Israeli policies vis-a-vis Palestinians much better. And so my personal view is that Turkey should create new alliances in the region.
Okay, let me, I mean, I will, Mr. Öğütçü, I will come to that. But before we go into that part of the discussion, I just would like to raise one issue with you. Turkey does not refrain from, I think, cooperation, especially with the European Union, because Turkey is trying to become full member of the European Union. That's an interesting, I think, anomaly, that while Turkey is trying to become full member of the European Union sees Turkey as a threat. It is very difficult to explain this to the Turkish public opinion. I mean, how would you explain this to people around? Because Turkey has accepted, European Union laws. You remember the reforms in early 2000s, and it went on, and Turkey internalized all the values. But all of a sudden, we have seen the acceptance of Greek Cypriots while there was a crisis in the island. Now, of course, there are some leaders of the European Union that they say it was a mistake. How come a candidate country could be seen and described as a threat? What is the rationale behind it? I mean, how they can justify this perception?
This could be an outstanding case study in universities, actually, how this happened. A country destined to become a full member and initiated the accession negotiations, implemented most of the acquis communautaire as requested and demanded by the European Union. How we came here? I think both sides are to blame for that. Both EU, which failed to honor its commitment to Turkey, and also legally speaking, if we are talking about rule of law, I think the rule of requires that Turkey should be carried on, and all the political factors from France, Austria, Greek Cyprus. Also, I think it comes back to what I said, 28 countries are impossible to manage. Because if one single country opposed Turkish accession, the whole process could be stopped, halted. And my personal view is that Turkey should never push from now onwards the full accession, full membership agenda. Put this dossier on the shelf to wait for the right time, because Europe is not ready to receive Turkey as a full member, and we are not ready to become a full member. Because if you have an opinion poll or referendum in Turkey, now, like Brexit, we will have Trexit before even joining the European Union. Therefore, I think this dossier of full membership is poisoning the relationship on both sides. Why don't we put it aside without losing our strategic gains up to now, including modernization of customs union, freedom of movement of Turkish people, no visa, and so many other areas. But focus on real areas of collaboration and partnership, because we are losing so much time. We are very successful in bilateral negotiations and bilateral deals with Spain, Italy, even with France. You remember that France was the #1 FDI provider to Turkey between 1980 and 2000. Look at all the French brand names in Turkey, from Renault and all the cosmetics and what you have. How come that such a closely aligned two countries? Also remember that, our administrative system is copied from France. Galatasaray, Saint-Benoît, Saint-Joseph, And these are incredible examples of close relationship. And also French enlightenment after the revolution, 1789, Turkey adopted more or less. It affected Turkey.
And also, I think Turkey was inspired by the French laïcité, especially in the formative period of Turkey. I just agree with you that Turkey has, I think, shared many values that the French inspired in the past. But today, the case is completely different.
This is really difficult to understand. And I don't know whether it's the Macron policy or the policy pursued by the state of France. Sometimes politicians, individuals, make a big difference, as in our case, the Turkish president. His personal touch in foreign policy and other areas make a big difference in our relationship with the rest of the world. I hope it's the Macron capricious behavior or whatever. It's not the France as a state, because we have so much. We are also a member of ClubNet. I mean, France is leading ClubNet in the EU. With Turkey in it, it's going to become even more influential, as Giscard d'Estaing did, bringing Greece to EU membership through his personal relationship with Karamanlis. Why not? Macron or whoever is going to lead him, succeed him, should perhaps bring Turkey closer to European Union, and this way, a relationship will be much better. However, with Turkey as it is, growing power, huge population, and also conflicting interests around the world, we don't have convergence of interest in many areas with the European Union and France, of course, in particular. It is very difficult to join the EU. Whether we want to join the EU is another question, because the world is changing. Now the power is
as you said, Mr. Öğütçü, as you have already, I think, pointed out, if you ask Turkish people in the streets whether they would like to become full member of the European Union, I think in the beginning, as you would remember, almost 90% of Turkish people supported full membership. But today, because of the treatment of the EU and also because of the global changes, as you have just said, I think the support rate is very low at the moment in Turkey. And the politicians should take this sort of reality into account when they deal with the, I think, foreign actors and foreign powers. But you have already, explained some of the issues that I was going to ask you. But, I interrupted you when you were talking about the diplomatic initiatives that Turkey could initiate in the region, because we talked about the emergence of strange bedfellows, a coalition against Turkey, including United Arab Emirates, France, Israel, etc. But what are the diplomatic avenues that Turkey can really push on the agenda? And also, what are the chances of equitable solution to the problems? Because Turkey will not give up its claims in the Eastern Mediterranean simply because there is a coalition against it.
I fully agree. I think first, to talk about EastMed, this EastMed issue will not go away. Nobody can resolve it because the positions are clear-cut. As you say, Turkey will not give up its right to access EastMed and Greater Mediterranean in order to move, Turkish commercial and military vessels will have to enter EastMed through an agency where we have problems already, because if Greece extends its territorial waters from 6 miles to 12 nautical miles, this is a casus belli, reason for war for Turkey. But it's not because Turkey loves to fight and, it's a warrior nation, but it is a vital interest. We are a huge nation surrounded by 3 seas and 85 million, historically also very active in this region. So international law, I agree, we have to respect international law, but we have to respect also equitable solutions, political, geographical particularities. And you cannot just say, well, this is what it says in the UN Convention. No. US is not saying this, China is not saying it, Russia is not saying it. So there has to be negotiated solutions, which will take decades perhaps, judging by what happened in other regions, South China Sea or Arctic region. So it is only natural that there will be conflict. There will be divergence of interest. But civilized nations sit down together and try to find practical solutions, which will not lead to confrontation, war, tension, or whatever you call it. Therefore,
so then what?
But on the Greek side, they are also very adamant. They say, well, this is our sovereign rights as well. Who is going to decide? Who is right? International courts or political solutions, or brokers, Norwegians, perhaps the Americans, who will come and help you solve. EU cannot be a broker, mediator, because it's already a party. Two of its member countries, South Cyprus and Greece, are full members, and they have to show solidarity with them. Even if they don't, then they will react and block some other EU decisions, like it happened with Belarus, sanctions. Now they are pushing for sanctions on the 25th, 27th meeting, September meeting, against Turkey. Not all EU members are aligned on that, but they know that if they don't perhaps show some solidarity with Greece and Cyprus, there will be difficulties in other areas. In my opinion, Turkey, I think, failed somehow diplomatically, leaving all the ground to anti-Turkish forces. We need to develop new allies, not pacts, I wouldn't say pacts, but new partnerships in the region. That requires adjusting our policy to Israel, Egypt, Syria somehow, because even in wartime, we talk to each other, our envoys, emissaries, ambassadors, whatever. If you don't want to talk at the head of state level, there are always ways of communicating. And I would also align very strongly with the United Kingdom, because UK is now outside EU. It is looking for new allies. A powerful one like Turkey, 85 million population, huge economy. And also in East Med, they are not happy that French and others are coming, while it has a vital interest in the island of Cyprus, one of the guarantor powers. So,
Mr. Öğütçü,
like this, Turkey should work closely with UK and also soften its position in terms of, it doesn't mean that you give up your vital interest, but that's the diplomacy. You have to exercise diplomacy very skillfully to arrange a new configuration of allies so that Greece and Cyprus, such two powers, important but very small compared to Turkey, will not use Turkish disagreements with other nations against us. Within EU, 27 countries are aligned against Turkey. Even Malta, Spain, Italy, very close to Turkey in many respects. Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. I think Turkey has a lot of opportunities to work with them. If Cyprus,
I think Turkey has shown that it is ready to invest in diplomacy when it comes to its, relations with Greece. You would remember that Germany was mediating between Turkey and Greece, but Greece at the last moment, made an alliance and agreement with Egypt, and I think it was a blow to the negotiations between Turkey and Greece. Secondly, Turkey also accepted NATO call for negotiations, but again, it was the Greece which refused. I think we should be really making a fair comment. I think Turkey is prepared to do everything in a diplomatic sense. My last question is about the role of NATO.
I'm referring to other countries in the region.
Right.
Because with Greece,
of course, diplomacy should be given a chance all the time. I think there is a consensus, there is an agreement on that. My last question is about the role of NATO, because NATO is supposed to be more neutral. Yes, European Union is not neutral simply because there are two members there. France is member, Greek Cypriots are the member, and Greece itself is also a member. But what is the role of NATO that could be more influential in terms of bringing more a negotiated solution to the rising tensions in the region?
Well, since Turkey is not a member of EU, as I said, EU cannot be an effective mediator, impartial, honest broker, and therefore you are left with the United States, which also
and the NATO?
They are aligned somehow with Greece. They are creating new naval bases in Greece, and it's not only for Turkey but also for Russia, countering Russia. And who else left? Norway, perhaps?
My question, the NATO, do you think NATO can play?
I'm coming to NATO because if this is not possible, NATO is the only organization where Turkey is a full member, second largest army, quite influential in NATO. Greece is there, France is there. Therefore, and also US, of course, is the final arbiter. If US wants something there in NATO, it can be done easily. However, in this conflict, they wanted to de-escalate the conflict between Turkey and Greece. That's the reason why Chancelier Merkel got in the picture. And she's a very fine and able leader. She understands the geopolitics and sensitivities of Turkey so well, and also the importance of Turkey breaking or making peace in the region. And therefore, I think Chancelier is going to be the person to make sure that EU, NATO, deal with Turkey in a fair way. Sanctions will backfire. If they try to impose sanctions on Turkey, I think EU will suffer from this also significantly. In NATO, what was initiated wasn't full-fledged negotiations or dialogue. It was technical discussions so that warships in the region will not clash with one another. It will be seriously coordinated by NATO. And you remember also in the heat of the Libyan crisis, a Turkish warship, a Turkish vessel suspected of carrying arms to Libya, they wanted to check. The French Navy wanted to check, and Turkey showed, of course, strong reaction to that. Also telling France that you first look after your own self, because you are providing weapons, missiles to Haftar forces in Libya. So you shouldn't be playing double standards in Libya. There also we saw some tension between France and the French and Turkish navies, and NATO got involved in this exercise, and the investigations have shown that Turkey was not the guilty party. And therefore, NATO might play a stronger role where Turkey is present as a member country than EU or any other organizations. But it wants to go step by step. I mean, what they suggested as technical discussions is not so important. Greece initially refused, even refuted the statement by NATO Secretary General, but then they sat on the table because they want to show the European Union before the 27th meeting, September meeting, that they are ready to dialogue and talk to Turkey. However, it's not sincere, because they think, my opinion is that Greece thinks that Turkey is not in a stronger position right now. This is the time when they can pull together all the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern Gulf countries, as well as EU nations, against Turkey. But I don't think it will work. We will see when the time comes for the sanctions discussion. There will be lots of friends of Turkey within the EU, which will stop that. If it goes ahead, this means there is going to be a very, very serious problem between Turkey and the EU. I don't think Turkey will remain indifferent to that.
Mehmet Öğütçü, thank you very much for joining TRT World Digital Debates. Thank you very much for your views and analysis on a very complicated issue and region. It seems that we are going to follow the upcoming developments in the Eastern Mediterranean for a long time. Now we come to the end of our session. It was on the French ambitions in the Eastern Mediterranean. We are hoping that we can meet you soon at a different discussion. Thank you very much, and goodbye to all.
Pleasure joining to you.